Hello, I'm Theresa Watson, the Executive Manager of Priests for Life, and I'm here with my colleagues, Janet Morana, the Executive Director, and Mark Valonzo, who is our Chief Technology Officer. And we're here today to kind of give you an update and have a little conversation on what's been happening the past year since Father Frank was laicized. And Janet, you, out of the three of us, know him the longest.
Of course, yes, because when he was ordained by Cardinal O'Connor, he came to my parish, St. Charles in Staten Island. But, you know, one important thing to note about the laicization is the Pope signed the decree actually on November the 9th. And then a year later to the date is the same date the Pope signed the decree kind of removing Bishop Strickland from his office. Isn't it ironic?
Same day.
Same day, remove them both. And I have to say, you know, for those who are not familiar with the church's way of governing, while we have the catechism and magisterial doctrines, that's our faith, but there's a thing called canon law. That's the same as the Constitution here in America. So imagine if the president went outside the Constitution and just made something up and did it. That would be like him taking away free speech from somebody or something like that. Wow. That's kind of what the Pope did. He did not use the governing documents of the Vatican, which is called canon law. He just made it up himself and said, okay, he's out of the priesthood and he's out of the diocese. So for me, who's known Father Frank since he was ordained, it was a shock. It was a shock. And I have to say, you know, other people say, well, maybe because he did something. Father Frank did nothing wrong. And I really have to say that up front. He's been the most holy, dedicated priest I have ever known. As far as his commitment to the unborn, his pro-life commitment, it stemmed from even before he went to seminary. You know, he went to the first March for Life when he was in high school, and he just had this desire to end abortion. And that permeated into his priesthood. In other words, it wasn't like he just woke up one day and said, oh, I think I want to do full-time work. Oh, I think I'll work for Priest Life. No, it was part of his being. It was part of his priesthood. And he was fortunate enough when Cardinal O'Connor ordained him, laid his hands, sent him to my parish in Staten Island. He had a pastor who also understood abortion as the preeminent issue. Numero uno. He got it. He gave Father Frank full permission. In fact, we used to kid around at the parish, oh, how are we going to hear the A word this Sunday from Father Frank's homily, meaning abortion? Now, he didn't always use the word abortion. He was very sensitive. He also knew how to preach about life with children at the children's masses, too. He helped start the little poster contest in the grammar school. It's like he helped nurture everyone's awakening, including my own. I mean, for me, abortion wasn't even on my radar screen. I wasn't even aware of it. He woke me up big time, you know? Sure. And he was so fortunate to have a pastor, an associate pastor who apparently is now a bishop, and the deacons. They were all on the same page. They all got it, that abortion is number one. And we have to help our people here, the kids being confirmed, the couples getting married, everybody understanding why if you can't get it right on abortion, then you can't get the rest of the teachings right. It's not like a pick or choose, you know?
Right. Yeah. And Mark, you, I always remember you telling us, you know, the story of your mom and how supportive she was of Priest for Life and how you didn't even know you were volunteering, right?
Yes. So I owned a business in New York, and I was pretty much bored with the business. I didn't have much to do. I saw that there were volunteers needed at Priest for Life. I didn't know Priest for Life. I didn't know anything about being pro-life. If you asked me about pro-life or pro-choice sounded pretty good. You know, I mean, sure. I really didn't know. But my mom is a daily communicant, and she
watched EWTN.
Yes,
that's another secret.
Yes, I was just gonna say that. So she's very familiar with Priest for Life, Janet, Father Frank. And when I was out on a date with my mom, when my father died, my brother and I took turns taking my mom out. So we were out in New Jersey, and I said, Mom, you know, I don't have time to go back home to Staten Island, drop you off. I had to pick up this priest, Father Frank. I didn't even know his last name. Okay, I didn't know his last name. And my mom said, okay, well, what priest? I said, Father Frank, I started volunteering at this place. Again, at this place, I didn't know Priest for Life. Okay. And I said, is it okay if we just go to Newark Airport and pick him up? So my mom was in the back seat of my SUV, and we pick up Father Frank. And I introduced Father Frank to my mom. I said, Mom, this is Father Frank. Father Frank, this is my mom. My mom was in shock, in total shock. Father Frank, of course, was very gracious. He said, Mrs. Valonzo, your son's a great help. He always picks me up, And my mom was in total shock.
Right.
Okay. We drop off Father Frank. My mom doesn't say a word. Okay. We drop off Father Frank. And the minute he just shuts the door, my mom was like, do you know who that is? He was like, that's Father Frank Pavone. He's like, he's the most famous pro-life person. He goes, Mark, you have to work for Father Frank.
Right. I remember.
And I said, well, I don't think that's going to happen. I said, but she told me that she would pray every day, a rosary every day, for me to work for Father Frank.
Wow.
I can tell you those rosaries are pretty effective.
Obviously.
I've been here 18 years.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
so fast forward, Father was laicized about a year ago, and your mom, has prayed for us all these years. How did she take the news?
Well, the entire family was shocked. When I first came in here and I gave my mom the very first tour of Priest for Life, there was a picture of Mother Teresa and Father Frank Pavone when Father Frank visited Calcutta.
Right.
And my mom said, Mark, those are two saints. You are working for a future saint. And I didn't think anything of it. But knowing Father Frank for 18 years, I can tell you the guy doesn't do anything else but end abortion. From the minute he wakes up till he passes out at night. And notice the words. Not when he's going to go to sleep,
Right.
but when he passes out. There was one time we had an IT problem in New York when the headquarters was still in New York. And Ruben and I got out at like 10:30 at night. And I saw that there was still light in his office. So I wanted to just say, good night, Father. We're leaving. Everything is okay. And I see him just passed out on top of his desk.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I kind of like wanted to back up a little bit,
Yeah.
but he heard me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, Mark, he said, come on in, give me an update. That update was 30 minutes. I mean, Janet, you know what it is.
I know.
Teresa, you know what it is, right? That was 30 minutes. And,
Right.
and he was like, oh, thank you for giving me my second wind. And the guy's working again.
Yeah.
Right.
I go home.
So, but one thing we have to make clear is, because I know we get this question all the time, is Father Frank still heading up Priest for Life? Right?
Yes.
Since the laicization. And I have to tell everybody, listen, number one, our entire board reaffirmed him.
Yes.
Right after the laicization. We had an emergency board meeting on Zoom, and they reaffirmed him as the national director. A unanimous board vote, right, Mark?
Absolutely.
And so that's number one. Number two, he doesn't just walk away from trying to stop abortion and end abortion. And then people say, oh, but you gave up your priesthood. He didn't give up his priesthood. It was taken from him, and he's still knocking at the door, waiting for it to be given back. And we, of course, we have canon lawyers and other advisors who are kind of lining up the documents and say, well, when the day comes when we can present all this and get him back his priesthood, we will do it. Because other people, it was so funny when it first happened. He was getting like little emails from heads of other churches saying, oh, you want to come under our church? Come under this church?
Right.
And he said, no, I was born a Roman Catholic. I'll die a Roman Catholic. And that's a very good lesson for everyone else right now. Because right now in the church, there's all this kind of conflicts, right? There's those who are very conservative in the church, and then the liberals. And even Bishop Strickland, Bishop Strickland and Father Frank are on the same page in that they both are saying, don't leave the church. That's the bride of Christ. Stay close to Christ, stay close to the sacraments, no matter what happens. And I always point out, listen, there's, been some not so wonderful popes through the centuries.
Right.
The problem is we're spoiled. When you think about it, John the 23rd, saint. St. John Paul II,
John Paul.
saint.
Right.
And then we had, of course, I'm thinking of the other one. Oh, Paul VI, also saint.
Right.
So for most people, over 50 years or more, we've had saintly pontiffs, in charge of the church. All right, so every so often you get a lemon, I guess, and I don't mean any disrespect by that, but I can't say I'm so pleased. But notice all the wacky things we're hearing right now that gets people angry. They're not part of the catechism, and they're not part of the magisterial teaching. See, the Pope can only do that stuff if he's teaching what's called ex cathedra from the chair of Peter. So we have to make people understand all this murmurings about all these liberal ideas about ordaining women as deacons and priests and blessing same-sex marriages and all this stuff. They can yap in conversation all they want because our teachings are our teachings, you know? I always think
Dogma.
of one of our great friends over in the Vatican, Cardinal Martino. He was wonderful to our ministry. And he was officiating at a lot of papal ceremonies, you know. And one day he picked up his pectoral cross, which actually was made from his mother and father's wedding rings after they just died.
Wow.
The siblings gave the wedding rings to Cardinal Martino and said, "Go and make." So he made this beautiful cross, and he told me a story. He held it up. At every time he did a baptism or something for his family, he would hold it, or a wedding, he would hold up the cross and say, "This is from your my mother and father, and the message is marriage is between one woman and one man only." And that's the teaching. That's what's in the Bible. It's not going to change.
Right.
It's not going to change. So what people have to understand is all this other conversation. Yes, there's liberals who want to change the church, but we've been around for centuries and we will continue.
Sure.
And so, you know, the way Father Frank said he's not leaving the church, no one else should either. And even Bishop Strickland, they all are in the same mindset. And, you know, yes, what happened to Father Frank was terrible. And people ask me all the time, "Oh, can we still call him Father Frank?" I said, "Listen," I said, "I've known the man since he was ordained. I'm calling him Father Frank because guess what? I'm an American citizen and I have free speech in my pocket. He can't present himself as Father Frank, you know, unless he wants to get in trouble and they want to try to do something else to him, like try to excommunicate. He's not going to give them a reason to do that.
Right.
You know, he goes to Mass, he receives the sacraments, he does everything like the rest of us Catholics
Sure, of
do.
course.
And he's waiting for the day. Like I said, he's knocking at the door saying, "Okay, you want to give me back my collar?" You know, he's ready to go to resume his, you know, wearing his collar and everything else. So,
But you know, the most important thing is that yes, you know, of course, we all hope that happens, and he certainly does as well. But he hasn't skipped a beat regarding
No.
leading priests for life.
Mm-mm.
Okay, you know, that's been his mission to save the babies, and
Yes.
that's what he does every day.
Right.
And he did it the day he found out about the laicization. If you remember, we were all, you know, trying to figure out, you know, what we were going to do for Father and
Right.
everything. And he was working. I was getting work emails from him. It was, you know,
Right.
and that's
Well, he
that's
stayed
what
he stayed
he
focused.
stayed focused, and
Stayed
he still
focused.
does every day.
Mhm.
And you know, talking about calling him Father, we get calls all the time, and people will always say, "Oh, you know, is Father Frank in or something?" And they always stop for a second and say, "I'm still going to call him Father." And I'm like, "Well, of
Yeah,
course,
we do
because
too.
we do too."
Right.
Right.
And you talked about the unity of the board members,
Right.
you know, but we also had unity amongst all of our staff members.
Right.
Right.
We didn't lose any staff members through this.
No, not at
We
all.
all continued because we're here for the mission to save the babies, and that's, you know, what our leader, you know, Father Frank does for us. And
Right.
we are.
And I
all
want to remind
committed to
everyone,
that.
it's not just about saving the babies, because every time you save a baby from abortion, you save a mother
Mother as
and a
well.
father from the grief, because we
Yes.
also operate Rachel's Vineyard,
Yeah.
which Father is also a pastoral director of.
Mhm.
And we fund Rachel's Vineyard, which is the largest abortion recovery program in the world.
Right.
You know, so it's yes, save the babies, but also heal. Because guess what happens? When you heal men and women who've been devastated from abortion, they come just one way, back to their faith, and they become 100% pro-life.
Sure.
You know, so it's all kind of, it's still saving souls. That's what Father's doing.
Right.
Even though they removed his priesthood right now, he's still saving souls. And I can't tell you how many people he has brought back into or brought to the Catholic Church, starting with Norma McCorvey, the Jane
right.
Roe of the Roe v. Wade decision. Abby Johnson, everyone knows about her.
Sure.
She herself had abortions and ran Planned Parenthoods and all that. Father was a catalyst in bringing her also back to the church. In fact, He's godfather to one of her children. You know, so I mean, and the
Nice.
list of pro-life leaders, as you know, Mark and Teresa, that he has brought into the Catholic Church or back to the Catholic Church, the list keeps growing and growing and growing. How does that happen? Because they see the truth in him, the conviction in him, and the deep faith he has. And Father, too, has worked across denominational lines with me all these years, too. You know, he doesn't get caught up about, you know, some Protestant denominations, they don't like the way we say Hail Marys and all that stuff. You know, they don't like, or they think we worship Mary, which we don't. We have a devotion to her, we don't worship her. But he has worked across devotional lines. In fact, one time people were criticizing him for that. And you know what he said? He said, you know what? I will work with people who believe in worshiping the man in the moon. And if they want to help stop the baby killing, when they when we stop the baby killing, then I'll tell them how doctrinally that's bad theology.
Yes.
You know, you know. So
Yes.
so this is the kind of man Father Pavone is, and also too, he's a no frills kind of guy. I can think all the way back from when, you know, he was my parish priest. Sometimes, like, he would have, like, see, like, I have this thing here. See these little, what do you call these little knotty balls come on things?
Right.
Oh, my gosh. One time he had this black sweater on. It was a disgrace. I said, Father Frank, you need a new sweater. So what I would do is at Christmas time, I'd be buying them sweaters, new hats, everything, like stuff like that. Because why? He would use it till there were holes in it, holes in his shoes.
Yes.
You've seen the holes in the
Shoes.
shoes.
Absolutely.
I came to be
Absolutely.
in my office process play. I said, I'm like, Janet, can we get the man a pair of
New
shoes?
pair of shoes.
It's just not
Get holes
important to
in.
him.
No.
He sleeps.
It's just not
His
important.
bedrooms have always been these little tiny
Twin
rooms.
beds.
No, it's a single twin bed.
Yeah.
Single twin bed.
Like the size of like a nun or a monk's cell.
Right.
And then I'll never forget this. When he came back from working, because he worked at the Vatican for a few years, and while he worked at the Vatican, he still ran Priest for Life, crazy man that he is. And when he came back, he didn't have a car. So we helped get him a Honda Accord. This is all the way back in the year 2000.
Wow.
And do you know how long he drove that car? 21 years.
Wow.
The car literally, the guy at Honda finally said to me, Janet, could you please tell this priest, you guys got to get him a new car.
Not safe.
Not only is it not safe, they don't even make the parts to fix it anymore. Like, you got to get him a new car, you know? So, you know, we did arrange to get him a new car and a salary. From the very, very beginning of Priest for Life, Father never took a
He
salary.
didn't have any.
But we barely was survived. You know, when he took over Priest for Life, when he was voted the first full-time national director from those guys in San Francisco, you know what they did? They gave him a check for $3,000 and said, take this and defend life.
With $3,000. Wow.
So Father, you know, I was still teaching full-time public school, but volunteering and helping him. And so were a core of our volunteers, you know, from Staten Island. We continued to help Father. And so I said, well, Father, how are we going to do this? He had his own personal checking account. And he had his savings from when he was ordained. You know, his parents threw him in a beautiful party, and he had his savings. And every time a bill came, I said, "Oh, Father, you know, we don't have the money for that. We're short. Don't worry, JM, you have my check." Because he used to leave me pre-signed checks. Yeah. Just fill out that check and pay the printer. Oh, fill out that check and buy and get the postage. He blew through his entire savings getting Priest for Life up and off the ground.
You talk about putting your money where your mouth is.
That's
You know,
right.
He really.
That's right. He did.
Exactly.
You know, and so he's really a no frills kind of guy. And people ask me now, oh, well, now that, he was laicized, Janet, how can he dress? I said, the only way he can dress, all in black. It's all he owns.
It's still the same outfit.
Same
It's
outfit.
just no collar.
Exactly. Because you know what it is? Even when he was my parish priest, okay, on his day off, you know, some priests, they get into sports shirts and they look, you know, cool. Oh, let me dress cool. Matter of fact, there's one priest, I won't say his name, but he likes to act like he's on the cover of GQ, you know?
Oh.
But not Father Frank. Plain as could be. And on his day off as a parish priest, now most priests, you know, they'll go golfing. That's a big joke. Every Wednesday, most priests are off. They go golfing. You know what Father Frank would do? He would first of all take the first mass at St. Charles, 6:45. Then he would get in his car, drive up to Port Chester, where his parents live, visit with his parents for a little while. Then he would get in the car and go up to St. Joseph Seminary and teach a diaconate class. Sometimes then he would go back home, see his parents, have quick dinner. Then he would go up to Connecticut to another place and teach a Bible study. Mm-hmm. He would get back to Staten Island, which is at least an hour and a half drive from his parents' house, on his day off at about 11 o'clock at night. Crazy, right? And this would go on every day off. And then when he does take time off, because people say, "Oh, Father," like they get a whole month's vacation. Like priests back when they're in parishes, Father Frank for his month's vacation, he would be like teaching. One summer he taught a class for St. Joseph Seminary, and it was on Staten Island, and I took it. It was a master's class. Oh, he was a tough teacher. But I have to proudly say I got an A in the class. But this is the kind of the things this man does. Right. His whole thing of what does he do for recreation? Once in a blue moon, he'll take a half a day or a day, and he'll go ride some roller coasters.
Roller coasters,
that's
his
one.
That's his thing.
Once in a while, he'll go for a walk on the beach too,
yes,
right?
He likes to walk on the beach
too. But that's one day. It's not like he'll take a week off at a time or anything.
We've talked about Father Frank, and one of the things that I've always loved was the story that Janet shared with me, okay? And Janet talked about it. The entire board have said unanimously, we want Father Frank. Right. You talked about the staff having, it's Father Frank, right? But the executive team have all said, listen, there's no other person who can do that. But Janet shared a story a long time ago. It must have been my first year at Priest for Life. The choo-choo train story.
The choo-choo train story.
Yes. Can we? I think.
Okay. Well, when he was my parish priest, both the pastor and the associate pastor, who's now a bishop, I refer to him. One day they came to me and said, Janet, Father Frank, he's got papers all over his floor, piled up upstairs. And when the maid comes in, the cleaning girl, she can't clean well. And then, oh my goodness, they had their little list of complaints, right? And so I said, listen, guys, he'll move the papers, just tell him. And then she can vacuum and put the papers back down. But why does he have to keep? I said, trust me, he knows every pile, what it is and where it is. In fact, one time he was traveling and he called the office. He said, Janet, could you go in my office in the third pile over about an inch down? You're going to see a paper. Sure enough, it was. Could you please read me that thing? I need that information now. So he knows it might look like a chaotic mess, but he knows what's going on. So finally, I got tired. One time, one of the pastors did this to me, the pastor. He said, I'm up going, ready to get communion. And he goes, body of Christ. And before I could say amen, he goes, and meet me in the sacristy after Mass. Because he would always have to give me some, can you help me out with Friday?
Tasks.
This and that. So finally, I got so tired of all this, they were trying to get him to be like them. And I said, listen, guys, let me explain something. Father Frank is here, and he's on his own little choo-choo train on his track. And you're over here, and you guys and the rest of the world, we are on our own choo-choo train. I said, the problem is, see, we're all going along nice. You choo-choo-choo. What you guys want to do is you want to force his choo-choo to cross onto your track. It's never going to happen. He's a unique character. Trust me. Because then I said, is he doing anything wrong? Oh, no, Janet. No. It's just that we'd like to, do a little course correction here. It's never going to happen because he is so single-minded, both in his zeal at the parish for bringing soul. And he brought me back to the church. I was away from the church for about 22 years. Imagine that. Wow. And it was through his persistent, gentle persistence that he got me to come back to the church, and so many others. I can't tell you, some of my friends, they that were in the parish, they weren't validly married in the church, because of all kinds of nonsense in the past. He helped every one of them straighten out their situations and then validate their marriage in the church. I do little ceremonies, Yes. I mean, his goal was straighten everyone out and get them back in line with the church, get them receiving the sacraments, and that's the way he still is today.
Yeah.
And so I say, yes, he's always going to be Father Frank to me. I will call him that to the day I die. And we are all praying for the day when they can give him back his collar, because, I have to tell you that, he packed up all that stuff. It's in storage, but he's waiting for the day for me to get that box out of storage and say, here you go, Father, here's all your stuff back,
Absolutely. And until then, we just keep marching on, right?
Exactly.
And doing the work.
Teresa, I was really crushed when all of this laicization happened. And that Sunday when I went to Mass, I spoke to my parish priest. Mm-hmm. And I told him, I said, listen, I am really crushed about this whole thing. with Father Frank. And I said, oh, I mean, Frank Pavone. My parish priest corrected me. And he said, you call him Father Frank. Don't you dare not
Stop.
call him Father
Right.
Frank.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just felt some solace
Yeah.
and justice in this. Janet, you talked about how the church works.
Right.
I just can't help but have a parallel and ask. I want to ask you the cancel culture in the United States.
Right.
How does it? I mean, for me, there's a lot of parallel with the cancel culture in the church.
Oh,
I said that this is
Sure.
Well, first of all, here in America, we have what we call there's already a group of priests. They're called the canceled priests, as we know, where their bishop has kind of ostracized them for different things like preaching too much about abortion, standing up for the unborn, and different things. So they have the canceled priests. But now we have, I call it the Pope's canceled clergy. And we have Father Frank, Bishop Strickland, and now Cardinal Burke, who, the Pope stripped him of his Vatican apartment and salary. It's like, it's so ironic. And again, like I said, both with, Father Frank and Bishop Strickland, he didn't even use canon law, which is the governing documents of the Vatican. He just did it, so it is a difficult time. But I think what we have to do is do what Father Frank does, which is keep your eyes on Jesus, receive the sacraments. This is the church, it's the bride of Christ. It's not going anywhere. But at the same token, we're not going to stop trying to bring an end to abortion and heal the moms and dads. And that's it. We just have to stay on mission. And finally, I have to say about our mission is I want to make people understand. Just like I explained at the beginning, how Father Frank gave everything, his own savings and everything to kind of get Priesthood off the ground, we have never been funded by the Catholic Church. It's all by private donations. So I really want to tell people, if you want to help Priests for Life flourish and continue the work of Rachel's Vineyard, of Silent No More, our work at the UN, we're a non-NGO at the UN, and the list goes on and on, our youth outreach. There's so much. It's not just Frank Pavone, Father Frank. It's this whole umbrella. Go to our website, priestforlife.org. Look at the depth and breadth of how we've grown over these years. And why? Because of Father Frank.
Right.
And so we do need support. And you can go to prolifegift.com and make a donation, to help us, because obviously in times like this, there are some people who say, oh, I guess they get this thing like you're just saying, like, oh, maybe I can't donate anymore because Father Frank's, no longer a priest. Heck no. Yeah. You want to help save babies? You want to help heal moms and dads?
Right.
We still need donations. So, you're so right, Mark, that your parish priest said, yes, of course, I always keep calling. Because, isn't it that scripture, you're a priest forever in the right of Melchizedek?
right.
And so that's what we have to stay focused on. Father Frank will be knocking at the door, waiting to be given back his collar. But until then, it's mission, stay focused. And that's what he did to us too. It helped us, to pray together as a staff.
Right.
And listen, guys, don't. This is what the devil wants. He wants to distract us. Stay focused on mission. And as long as we're following the mission of the Lord to save the unborn, which is the top number one issue, it will work out in the end. And I always think of what Mother Teresa used to say, isn't it always, when you think of the great people in our times, like Mother Teresa, Mother Angelica, all of them grew beautiful ministries. Look at Mother Angelica, right? But they always did it out of deep faith. And the money came in at the very last minute before they even realized it, and sometimes just the exact amount they need. That's how we work here at Priest
That's
for Life.
right.
It's like we're always like hanging on tender hooks going, uh-oh, can we make all our bills this month? But it just seems that God provides. And that's what Mother Teresa used to say. She used to say, God has lots of money.
That's correct.
You know,
Don't worry
so-
about money.
So I
God has lots of
wanted
money.
to say our donors are such a blessing to our ministry.
Blessing.
They have helped us so much over the years, and they have stayed faithful. And so I just want to thank them and
Thank you.
and bless you, and hopefully continued support, especially through this Christmas season.
Yes.
And we look forward to getting your Christmas cards, and we will send you Christmas cards because truly, when we focus now on the birth of Jesus, and actually, when you think about it, perfect example of Mary being a woman in an unexpected pregnancy, right?
Right.
That's right.
And
That's
Jesus
right.
was an unborn child too. And so I think, we just stay focused on our mission and we stand with Father Frank, both a staff, a board, all of us, and we hope you do too. Right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes,
So-
definitely. Well, I think this has been fun. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Exactly.
More often.
Yes, we certainly hope you have as well. And so thank you for watching and God bless you.